Alright, guys, let's take a horror break and talk about Green Lantern from 2011, because why not? Green Lantern, I had never seen before. I really do love superhero movies, and I love the Marvel ones, the DC ones. I really like a lot of them, or love a lot of them. So it's so weird because Green Lantern is one of those movies that, based on reception alone, by just hearing about it, I was like, I just I never had it as a priority, like to watch Green Lantern 2011, because I just always heard so many bad things. I heard so many people say this is bad, this is forgettable, this is horrible. Um, and it dropped on Netflix recently, and everybody was just like, "What? Okay." And it's one of the most popular movies on Netflix this week. So I thought, I might as well go and see this, or finally watch this, because I wanted to right the wrongs. I'm a completionist, and a bad one at that, because I waited forever, because I knew this movie whenever it came out, but I just heard so many bad things about it, and I'm just like, well, I'll just watch it later, and then I just waited and waited. But I finally got to watch the Ryan Reynolds Green Lantern movie. I know nothing of the source material. I have never read a Green Lantern comic book. I don't know anything about Green Lantern. So watching this movie was really rough. I feel like I'm gonna be just the exact same as everybody else. I thought this one was pretty bad and pretty forgettable. In which it's weird because the movie is so utterly strange. Like it's not a train wreck like, say, the Halle Berry Catwoman movie. Like, that one's really bad, like terrible, but this one is just so incompetently boring because it is just about Ryan Reynolds, Hal, who meets a dying Green Lantern guy and then gets the ring and he becomes a Green Lantern and the ring has chosen him. So he goes off to fight this bad guy who is a weird ass doctor who gets his head kind of bulging out like the villain of the movie. And they do that cliched thing like the 2002 Sam Raimi Spider-Man, I feel like, did it great. And then a lot of movies replicated that. And this one does it where the hero and the villain both gain their powers at the same time and they're doing cool shit or bad shit. Where, like, the villain is deforming himself while Hal is up in the air and flying around and with really bad CGI. So it's weird to see that this movie, in all instances, I feel like is just utterly forgettable because it doesn't do anything that makes any impact. And it's such a shame too because Ryan Reynolds has really come into his own in terms of movies that he's in. Like, he hasn't always had a good track record. He's had movies that are good, or entertaining. Like, I remember liking Best Friends, or no, not Best Friends, Just Friends, with Anna Faris. I remember liking that one, but then he had a lot of like weird ones. Like, this one was really weird. X Men Origins Wolverine, which is another superhero movie, which was so weird. And then, of course, we got Deadpool 1 and 2, which really invigorated him in terms of the superhero genre. Um, but he has done a lot of hit and miss movies, and there's been more so recently that I've enjoyed more than like his not good ones. And I want to see Free Guy still. I still haven't seen that. It's still in theaters, so I might see it before it goes out of theaters. If not, I'll try to watch it whenever it comes out on streaming or whatever. But I want to see Free Guy. And back to Green Lantern. The base, like I said, the story is that where this guy obtains the ring and he becomes a superhero. His girlfriend Blake Lively gets taken away. He has to go save her. He, like Superman, has a duty to fight for the good of everything, but it's just, and Superman is a really good example. The 1978 Superman movie. This one cribs off of that a lot. With the girlfriend getting taken away, with the abilities, with the or no, not with the abilities, with the way the abilities are used, with the horrible CGI. The CGI is so weird in this movie. It feels like it's CGI. If CGI was made in like 1978, it would have been this kind of CGI. Like in terms of like if you watch the original Superman and it did something like this, it would have been very odd. And the CG in this is awful. Like I tried sometimes to defend CGI because there's some CGI that's cartoonish, but I think still works sometimes. Like I like the Star Wars prequels with that CGI, and I know that CGI is not great. It's definitely dated 2000s, 1990s CGI. As each one of the three got better, like in terms of CGI and effects. But well, actually, I take that back. Episode 2 is the worst out of the three in terms of CGI. But CGI to me is such a weird thing because sometimes it can be integrated fine, sometimes it can be not integrated fine, and sometimes it can be a mishmash of both. And this one is so weird because this one feels so much like a video game in terms like a bad video game style graphics because you've got the real scenes of like Ryan Reynolds and Blake Lively together, and then you've got all the scenes in space with the Green Lantern, whatever the hell their names are, and it's so drastically different and out of place. Like it's so weird whenever you've got movies like this that do that because it's just so drastically different. Like I don't understand. Like I don't know if they really waited or didn't wait and just did the movie without tweaking the CGI because for 2011 I was genuinely surprised at how horrible it was. Not saying CGI was amazing in 2011. It had some movies that had good CGI, but some of them were bad too. This one is definitely a bad example, and I really am. It's sad to keep hitting this movie down, beating this movie down because I don't I don't know anything about the source material. Who knows? This might be pretty accurate to the source material. I don't know. But as a movie, it just really was uninteresting. Ryan Reynolds is honestly pretty boring, and he's usually a good actor and a funny actor, and I felt like he brought nothing to this. Blake Lively brought nothing, and she's great in a lot of things as well. Like, she's fantastic in, uh, what is that movie, that Paul Feig movie that she was in? A Simple Favor. That was awesome. She was fantastic in that. But she's great as well, like great actress, and they just have nothing to do. They just really are saying lame, bland lines, and the villain is bland and lame and really just off-putting. Not in terms of being a villain, but in terms of just how this character looks. It's just so odd and so weird. Um, I really wish I could say something positive about Green Lantern, but I really can't. Like, I think in terms of the DC movies I've seen, and I've seen all the big like theatrical ones. This is definitely one of the worst. Of course, Catwoman's worse than this. Catwoman was really, really terrible, but this one is just like if Catwoman was so terrible, this one is so utterly boring and so utterly uninteresting, and it's so cliched, and it just feels like a waste of time. Like, I watched it and I was like, wow, I really wasted my time watching this, honestly. And I don't say that much about movies. I love movies. But this one really didn't do much for me. It just was a really uninteresting, ineffective movie with really bad CGI and bland dialogue, bland characters. And it was just confusing because I know nothing about the source material, but there's so many superhero movies, comic book movies that can do this where like they make you interested even though you don't know the source material. Like Marvel does a great job at that. Marvel is very blockbuster. It tries to be like something to appease for most people. And DC does that as well with a lot of their movies, but this one it did not feel like that to me. Like, it was just saying a lot of boring dialogue that I understood nothing about in terms of the Green Lanterns. And I know they explain it, but I was still like, what the hell is going on? I don't know. But yeah, it's just a shame that this one really didn't do anything for me at all. Like I said, it's definitely one of the worst. It's not as bad as Catwoman, but I think it is still pretty bad in terms of just being incredibly boring and incredibly uninteresting. Um, it's just kind of a shame. So pretty much that's all I could say about Green Lantern 2011. I know that they were gonna maybe put Ryan Reynolds Green Lantern in the Justice League, Zack Snyder's Justice League. Apparently, that Zack Snyder brought that idea around, which I thought would have been fine, because even if this movie was boring, and I thought it was, and thought it was bad, I still like when movies and series keep in continuity. Like, even though people don't like this one, and I didn't either. Like, I am fine if it was in continuity. Like, that doesn't do much to me. And they could even like better the movie if it was like in continuity with the DCEU, and maybe they could like bring back Ryan Reynolds and like bring and make it like make his character actually interesting and fun, and like DC not trying to be as super dark anymore after the Dark Knight movies and then Man of Steel. So like maybe they could come bring Ryan Reynolds back and do that, but I know they're not going to. But because he's got a good career now and he's not going to come back to this, or at least I'm assuming not. And he's Deadpool, so he's got a lot on his hands, or a lot on his plate. So yeah, like I said, really not much else to say. Green Lantern was a bore. It was so boring and uninteresting. But I had to watch it. I think there's only one more DC movie that I have not seen that was, I think, theatrical, quotation marks, Supergirl. I don't remember if that was theatrical. I think it was, but nobody remembers like the basic population doesn't remember Supergirl. I know about it from like bad movie reviews, and I haven't seen Supergirl, but I'll definitely see it sometime. Eventually in this channel, I think I might want to review all the DC movies, but I I don't know, like, and it's weird because I also just watched the Suicide Squad like a month ago, which was fantastic, so good, so fun, such a fun, entertaining superhero movie. And then I watched this, and I'm like, this is one of the worst. That one's one of the best. So yeah, DC has got an interesting track record. DC always, whether it's good or bad, I don't usually dislike watching any of them, but this one was an exception. I really didn't like the Green Lantern. So that's it. I'm rambling. More reviews coming soon. I'll see you guys later. Take care.